Good morning and welcome back to Randellhouse Farms. This morning we're going to be starting some garden cleanup. Autumn is definitely on its way. The leaves have a tinge of yellow to them and a lot of the summer crops are starting to die out. We still have quite a few fall crops coming in. My peppers are doing great, as you can see, but we have some upcoming cold nights that are probably going to wipe them out shortly, which is to be expected. We usually get our first frost around mid to end October. October is in about a week as I'm filming this. The garden has been really good to me this summer. I will say, as I expanded it, it was a lot more work than I was anticipating, and with life just getting busy, things got away from me. There's so much more I would have loved to show you, but there's always next year's garden and the year after that and the year after that. And there's always new things that I'm growing and trying, so the journey's never really ended. This year's spring and summer growing season was kind of strange. It was a very slow to build, but then it was very hot and very wet all summer, which some plants loved and some plants didn't. I feel like my pepper plants and tomato plants took a long time to get going, but once they did, they just skyrocketed. The tomato harvest coming in is almost too much to keep up with. I've been storing a lot of them in my freezer so I can can them during the colder months, just because it's been so hot. I don't want to heat up the house that much. This is always a really bittersweet time for me. I love the autumn. It's my favorite season, but it also means that the gardening season is coming to a close. Don't get me wrong, we still have quite a few plants over here, which I'll show you in a second, that are going to take me into the fall, early winter, and then I need to plant garlic. But after the garlic's planted, I have what's in the greenhouse, and then I have 4 or 5 months of cold snow, not growing much. But man, this garden has provided me with so much food and just a happy place for me. Alright, enough sitting. Let's get to work. Very relaxing. Thank you. I'm probably not in frame, because in case you guys haven't noticed, I'm really good at cutting off my head, but I have to show you these habanero plants. This is the plant that I told you about in my story of a habanero. Look at these guys. This one specifically was the runt, and now she's producing fruit. They're starting to turn. I have one yellow over here, and these things are just absolutely loaded. Cayenne plants are just absolutely loaded. So when I pulled out my garlic, I decided to make this my fall planting bed. I planted this whole thing out with frost-tolerant crops, so that way they can grow into the fall before I harvest them to put in my garlic. I have lettuce on the end, beets in the middle. I planted a ton of beets because I'm weird and I love beets. I have some turnips over here. I have some rutabagas behind me. Of course, I stuck in 2 sunflowers because why not? I have carrots on the end here, some Swiss chard in between, and I have some calendula here, just for fun. sometimes when your garden season, your life's just gonna get crazy. This year was one of those years for me. Like I told you in my last video, I've switched jobs. I was going through a lot of stress with my previous job, and I just didn't have as much time to devote to this garden, but it still grew. It still provided me with so much food and so much beauty, and really kept my heart happy in those stressful times. There's so much more I wanted to share with you, but I just didn't have time. But that's something you just kind of learn as you garden. I know new gardeners want to spend all this time in their garden, and they feel like they're a failure if they're not able to devote all of their time and attention. But I'm here to tell you, that's not what you need to do. Your garden will forgive you. It'll grow all by itself. It doesn't necessarily need you. And it'll provide you with so much food and happiness. You're gonna see a lot of these crops are dying off. That's just the way the season goes. There's nothing wrong with them. It's almost autumn here in Zone 6B in New York State, so this is very normal. There's still a lot to harvest. I'm gonna harvest as many seeds as I can here from these nasturtiums and some of the leaves to dehydrate for tea. These are my emperor pole beans, which beans are really prolific right now. They love the cooler weather. I actually planted a second succession over in my raised bed of jade bush beans, so I'm steadily pressure canning green beans as the harvest comes in. And they're just beautiful running up these trellises, and the pollinators love them. You can see this bumblebee buzzing around. It's such a bittersweet feeling to see the garden slowly start to die off. My videos just from August is when the garden gets so wild. Everything's blooming, everything is producing, everything's lush and green, and it's just a forest. And then as things slowly start to die back and brown and stops flowering, it starts to feel a little empty again. But I know that it's a season, and next August it's going to be just as green and beautiful and lush. I love this. I love this so much. This is kind of a premature notion, but I'm in my feels this morning, so just go with me here. I started this garden in February. And I say that because in February is when I planned out the spaces, started some of my plants from seed indoors. And then from there in March, started more seeds indoors, caring for the seedlings. April I started gathering the supplies, and I put together this garden that I'm sitting in right now, the no-dig garden. I had no idea if it was going to work out. You guys saw that. You saw me put down the tarp over grass, put down the cardboard, bring in the compost. And there was a few times that I wasn't sure if I was going to grow anything. I have grown so much food in this garden. And it is so much work. What people will say to me is, man, I wish I could grow a garden, but that looks like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But have you ever done anything in your life that wasn't a lot of work that was worth it? I haven't. I'm really happy I put in this space. And I'm already dreaming of ways to change it and tweak it for next year, which I will share with you. There's a lot of cleanup I need to do in this space. I need to get out the plants. I need to harvest the rest of the fruit before I take out the plants. And last year I was really diligent about doing it. I did it before the frost. I did it as things were dying out. And this year I kind of just want to be more relaxed with it. It takes a lot of work. But it's work I want to enjoy. And if it's stressing me out, it's not always worth it. So I'm gonna harvest what I can harvest. We're probably gonna get a frost here in the next 2-3 weeks if we're lucky, and a lot of this will die out, and then I'll spend my fall cleaning up the garden. I'm gonna do my best not to rush it. I always say that the garden will teach you things, and I told you that I literally needed to stop and smell the roses this year. And I think that the garden taught me how to do that. I don't want to be in such a rush in my life that I don't take the time to stop and just enjoy what's around me. This garden looks a hot mess right now, and I'll show you some of it in just a second, but if my garden looked like this last year, I wouldn't be happy. But right now, I'm happy. So I'm gonna call this the last spring-summer garden tour of 2021. There will be many, many more videos. Don't think I'm going anywhere just because the gardening season is ended. We still have the fall garden to go through, the planting of the winter garden, aka the garlic and shallots. And I have so many ideas for winter videos. I told you in one of my first videos that I don't believe there's any such thing as failure with the garden. If you planted something and it didn't grow, you still learned something. So, my garden failures, which I don't believe is a failure, is that one eggplant that I bought and planted. I had to rip that thing out within a couple weeks. It was completely destroyed by flea beetles and it just wasn't going to survive. I think I planted too many cherry tomatoes. I always say there's no such thing as too many tomatoes, but there's such thing as too many cherry tomatoes. So next year I'm going to knock down the amount of I plant. I had a horrible year with squash bugs. My plants over there are completely overtaken. I tried so hard to keep up with the eggs, destroying the eggs as I found them, but I just have so many squash bugs in this area. There's really nothing I can do about it unless I want to put chemicals in my garden, which I don't. I'm going to stick with organic gardening. My first year successfully planting peppers. I think I have quite a great crop. I think next year I need to space out my plants a little bit more and really hone in on the varieties that we want an abundance of. Sunflowers, I don't regret planting any sunflower ever. They're all beautiful. I really enjoyed these arched trellises. I think they add a lot of visual interest to the garden, and I just love them, and they're great for growing beans. It's really easy to see them and pick them. My cucumber plants this year were kind of a bust. I did get a decent harvest, don't get me wrong, but I need to figure out a different system of planting them, and they just took a really long time to get going, which is not normal for me. Could have just been the year's conditions. And these trellises that I told you when I put them up for the tomatoes, I told you I needed to raise them up, and I couldn't find longer T-posts anywhere. The largest length of T-post I could find was 6.5 feet, and I really need like 10-foot T-posts. to raise these trellises up to where they need to be. So that's on my agenda for next year. I will take you through the newly established cottage garden, which I believe to be a success. Those plants are really filling in, and I'll add them year after year. Perennial gardens take quite a long time to get established. I mean, they could take anywhere from 5 to 7 years to really grow in how you want them. Like I said, we have a lot of videos coming up. Please consider subscribing if this is something you're into. I'm really happy to have you here and to spend some time with you. Let me know down below any videos you want to see. I'm happy to produce all sorts of content, anything you think that I could offer you valuable information from, or just anything fun. I'm really enjoying filming these videos as a testament to my garden. It's going to be really great to look back on. And there's a bug. They're going to be really great to look back on in the dead of winter when I'm really missing this beautiful space. I just love it here. Thank you for spending some time with me. Until next time.